Welcome to Altnabreac Towers, Episode 10, The Survey. The following episode is fiction inspired by true events. If you ever find yourself in the windswept, sheep-infested wilderness of Caithness at Altnabreac Station, you might stumble upon the most hotly contested strip of gravel in Britain, the driveway. Not a phantom, not a mystical white line on some map, no. This is a real, physical driveway, and yet somehow, Ian and Elizabeth insisted it was theirs. It was a morning of low clouds, high winds, and maximum dramatic potential. Ian stood at the edge of the driveway, waving his arms like a maestro conducting an orchestra of panic. This here, the driveway, right here in the cattle grid. Do you see it? Ours? Elizabeth's camera in hand nodded violently. All ours. Gravel tire marks, our very souls. The surveyor clipboard clutched like a life raft, tried not to faint. He had measured zigzagging hedges, rivers cutting through gardens, and a fence that seemed to shiver in fear. But nothing prepared him for two humans declaring ownership over a patch of gravel that very clearly belonged to Network Rail. Mr. Smith. Network Rail's big gun appeared with a smile that suggested he had just won a game of cosmic Monopoly. He was followed by a small army of British transport police, all perfectly still, perfectly serious, and perfectly confused by the spectacle. "We own your driveway," said Mr. Smith calmly. "It's ours," Ian shouted. "We have chains. We have ropes. We have pegs. Emotional investment." Mr. Smith raised an eyebrow. The chains were cut. The ropes flapped, while a peg had mysteriously fallen into a puddle. "Yes, but it's ours," Ian repeated. "No, it's ours," Mr. Smith replied, with the serene authority of someone who knows that gravel has lawyers. Elizabeth filmed it all, narrating dramatically. "They cut our chains. They trample our gravel. This is war." The chain across the driveway became the battlefield of destiny. Ian asked politely, "Are you going to cut it?" "No," said Mr. Smith, smiling like he was about to enjoy the next 20 minutes of theatrical chaos. 20 minutes later, snip, the chain fell. Ian clutched his chest and staggered back. "You're criminals," he yelled. Mr. Smith simply smiled. The surveyor muttered, "I just wanted to measure something. Anything. Maybe a hedge." The police recited legislation in the tone of a bedtime story, while Ian and Elizabeth insisted that standing on their driveway was perfectly legal. A sheep wandered past, shook its head, and muttered to another, "Couple are insane." The following day, Ian returned, armed with a hammer, a measuring tape, and an expression that suggested he might take matters into his own hands. "We'll peg it again. Mark every millimeter." Elizabeth rolled out a brightly colored rope across the cattle grid, letting it flap in the wind like a flag declaring war. "This is ours. Every millimeter." The surveyor arrived again, clipboard trembling. I'm just here to measure." "Measure our driveway," Ian shouted, waving dramatically. "Your driveway is still ours," Elizabeth added. "No, it's not," said Mr. Smith quietly. The police looked mildly horrified. Ian fainted. Elizabeth dropped the camera. The surveyor almost toppled into a puddle. The sheep muttered to another, "A couple are narcissistic." Over the next few days, chaos reached operatic levels. Chains reappeared mysteriously, only to be cut again. One chain was cut, mysteriously replaced, then cut again by someone wearing an unidentifiable hat, possibly a sheep in disguise. Out. Ropes flapped dramatically in the wind, tangling themselves around pegs, surveyors, ankles, and Ian's legs. Elizabeth narrated every gust like an over-the-top war correspondent. "Look at it. The rope fights for our driveway, rises against injustice." Pegs were hammered ceremoniously, only to fall into puddles or fly like tiny missiles, narrowly missing the surveyor, who muttered things that sounded suspiciously like fainting instructions. Ian swooned dramatically at every fallen peg. The British transport police returned, sighing in unison. One officer accidentally stepped on a rope, stumbled, and nearly toppled into a puddle. The driveway remained unmoved, gravelly, solid, and entirely network rails. Ian and Elizabeth escalated tactics further. They tried a human blockade using ropes, a rogue chain, a measuring tape, and sheer determination. Ian fainted again, landing in the mud with an astonishingly theatrical splat. Elizabeth dramatically pointed at puddles, ropes, and pegs as if they were traitorous conspirators. A flock of judgmental sheep wandered through the scene, occasionally stopping to stare, chewing grass, and providing silent commentary like a sarcastic Greek chorus. Even the surveyor reached peak despair. Clipboard in one hand, hammer in the other, he measured the same peg 5 times in a row, muttering millimeter, millimeter, millimeter. Before fainting into a mud puddle, the court hearing added another layer of absurdity. Ian and Elizabeth represented themselves armed with staplers, maps, ropes, and a level they insisted was crucial evidence. Network Rail solicitors appeared calm, smug, and armed with briefcases heavy with inevitability. "Your driveway is outside your boundary and belongs to Network Rail," the solicitor announced. "No," Ian said, spinning in circles. "Look, evidence. Tire marks, chains, ropes. Surveyor reports. Emotional resonance." "Yes, still ours," Elizabeth added, pointing at the driveway like she was defending the crown jewels. The judge blinked slowly. Somewhere a legal textbook considered self-immolation. Chains reappeared and were cut again. Ropes flapped. Pegs fell. Surveyors muttered. Police sighed. Ian fainted. Elizabeth shouted. Cameras rolled in the driveway. Unmoved. Gravelly, solid, entirely network rails. Despite all this, Ian and Elizabeth maintained their absolute certainty. "I don't believe it," Ian wailed. "We measured it. We pegged it. We filmed it. Fabrications," Elizabeth shouted. "All evidence is clearly biased," Mr. Smith smiled. "You're welcome to keep filming. Out. The driveway still belongs to us." The surveyor fainted yet again. The rope flapped like a defiant flag. The chain lay in a puddle, remnants of the epic struggle. The sheep rolled their eyes. Chains cut, ropes flapping, pegs falling, surveyors fainting, police explaining the law once in bedtime story fashion, Ian and Elizabeth shouting at gravel. All for a driveway they did not own. Somewhere in the Highlands a tree muttered, "The couple are mad." And Ian and Elizabeth, exhausted, damp, yet still insisting, with absolute certainty, that the driveway was theirs. 'Cause comedy, after all, thrives on stubborn, glorious denial in the face of undeniable facts. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.